November 23, 1944. Camp Shelby, Mississippi. The pencil in General Major Friedrich Wilhelm von Melenthin's hand paused over the page as he wrote in his journal that would later become part of his memoirs. Outside the window of his barracks, American supply trucks rolled past in an endless convoy, their tires humming against the asphalt road. New tires, all of them. In Germany, we were mounting our trucks on steel rims wrapped with rope, praying for captured Soviet rubber. Here, they changed tires as if they were worthless. The waste is staggering, almost obscene. Melenthin watched with disbelief. Each truck moved continuously, operating on fresh rubber that seemed to materialize from an inexhaustible source. 6 tires per vehicle, enough to equip an entire German infantry company for a month. What he didn't know was that he was witnessing merely a fragment of the greatest industrial transformation in human history, a synthetic rubber program that had grown from 230 tons in 1941 to over 920,000 tons by 1945. The mathematics of German defeat were not being written on the battlefield, but in the quiet hum of American engines and the endless rhythm of rolling tires. The German General Staff, who had meticulously calculated how Japan's conquest of Southeast Asia would deny the Allies natural rubber, had never imagined a nation could create an entire industry from nothing in less than 3 years. The collapse of their assumptions had begun long before in Berlin, among maps dotted with red pins marking rubber plantations. General Franz Halder, Chief of the General Staff, wrote on February 15, 1942, 2 days after Singapore fell, "The British and Americans have lost 90% of the world's rubber supply. Without rubber, no tires. Without tires, no trucks. Without trucks, no mobile warfare." The arithmetic was clear, the conclusion inevitable. Yet Halder could not have known that, even as he penned those words. American engineers were breaking ground on 51 synthetic rubber plants across the United States. The Rubber Reserve Company, created by President Roosevelt in 1940, was already laying the foundation for one of history's most ambitious industrial undertakings. By the time Singapore fell, construction was underway on facilities that would convert petroleum and grain alcohol into rubber, transforming corn and oil into the lifeblood of mechanized warfare. Before Pearl Harbor, synthetic rubber accounted for less than 0.4% of American consumption. The 4 major tire companies, Firestone, Goodyear, Goodrich, and U.S. Rubber, had experimented with synthetic alternatives but produced only pilot quantities. Total American production in 1941 was a mere 230 tons, barely enough to outfit a single armored division. German intelligence had this data and assumed that even a crash program could not produce meaningful quantities before 1945. They were catastrophically wrong. By December 19, 1941, just 12 days after Pearl Harbor, the major rubber companies signed unprecedented agreements to share all patents, research, and production techniques. Fierce competitors suddenly became collaborators. Trade secrets worth millions were shared freely. German military minds could scarcely comprehend such cooperation. Among the first to witness American abundance were German officers captured in North Africa. Over 150,000 troops surrendered in Tunisia, including 12 generals. General der Panzertruppe Gustav von Wurst, who commanded the 5th Panzer Army, watched his mechanized forces slowly grind to a halt for want of rubber. Colonel General Hans-Jürgen von Arnim surrendered when his forces ran out of fuel and tires simultaneously. And General der Panzertruppe Wilhelm Ritter von Thoma, captured at El Alamein, observed burning vehicles as British forces advanced. Von Thoma would later reveal German rocket programs while in captivity, but his most profound revelation came from witnessing America's material abundance. At the Special Interrogation Center in Trent Park, he told fellow prisoners, "We calculated everything except their ability to create resources from nothing." At Camp Clinton, von Wurst observed something that challenged every understanding of industrial warfare. In his notes, he wrote, "The Americans use rubber with abandon. Shower mats, gaskets on every pipe, rubber soles on prison shoes. Their garbage trucks possess better tires than our last command vehicles in Tunisia. Yesterday I watched them burn a pile of worn tires. In Africa, we would have killed for those tires." The trains transporting prisoners across the United States were a revelation. Not cattle cars, but Pullman coaches with rubber cushioned seats, rubber window seals, and insulated electrical systems. Lieutenant General Karl Bolovius documented the journey. Every mile revealed abundance they had never imagined. Factories produced thousands of tires daily, stacked like cordwood, while in Tunisia, his division received only 50 tires over 3 months. The psychological impact was immediate. Officers saw ordinary civilians walking with new tires on cars, rain gear made from rubber, and women operating machinery that required precision engineering. Jewish chemists, many refugees from Nazi Germany, led research teams that solved problems German science could not. African American workers held skilled positions, and women were celebrated for their contribution, a stark contrast to the hierarchy and racial ideology back home. Germany's approach to rubber was monopolistic and inflexible. IG Farben guarded its patents, while divisions within the company barely cooperated. The military had to negotiate every increase in production or facility expansion. In America, on the other hand, Firestone, Goodyear, Goodrich, and U.S. Rubber shared everything voluntarily. Government and industry worked in harmony. The technological achievement was staggering. Continuous polymerization, improved catalyst systems, and new modifiers allowed synthetic rubber to outperform German Buna rubber. Tires lasted longer, even in extreme cold, and resisted ozone cracking, problems that had stymied German engineers for years. By 1943, American production reached 230,000 tons. By 1944, 770,000 tons. By 1945, 920,000 tons annually, 85% government-styled synthetic rubber. Total wartime production exceeded 2 million tons. American tires lasted longer than natural rubber and were superior in every measure. Meanwhile, German vehicles were immobilized, not by enemy fire, but by tire failure. General Heinz Guderian observed during Operation Barbarossa that his panzer divisions were becoming infantry divisions by default due to worn tires. The situation in North Africa was even grimmer. Supply vehicles moved at 12 km per hour, ammunition and water deliveries were delayed. General Ludwig Krühl, who commanded the Afrika Corps, understood that Germany was losing not to superior strategy, but to logistics. Every vehicle required tires shipped across the Mediterranean under Allied air attack. Every American vehicle had limitless supplies. American success came from mobilizing society itself. Women comprised 65% of the workforce in some rubber plants, African Americans held supervisory roles, recent immigrants operated complex machinery, and former competitors worked as partners. Germany excluded vast portions of its population due to ideology. Jewish scientists had been murdered or exiled. Foreign workers were treated as slaves. Colonel Wilhelm von Brauchitsch reflected, "We believed our system was more efficient because it was authoritarian. Yet the American system, with all its apparent chaos, produced results we couldn't approach. Their chaos was more organized than our order." Officers gradually realized the true power behind American victory. It was not guns or tanks alone, but the people, the engineers, the factory workers, the women, the immigrants, all coordinated, all motivated, all contributing to a single purpose. And that purpose was freedom and abundance, rather than fear and coercion. By spring 1945, American production had so exceeded requirements that synthetic rubber plants were retooling for peacetime production, tires for civilian automobiles, washing machines, refrigerators. While Germany was collapsing, America was planning post-war prosperity. German officers, returning home, carried these lessons. They had lost a war, yet witnessed the power of collaboration, democracy, and trust. The tire that never stopped rolling became a metaphor, a symbol of a nation that could fight a global war and still plan for peace. The final revelation hit hardest when prisoners learned that America would provide Germany with the very formulas, processes, and techniques that had defeated them, freely, without charge. Prosperous neighbors made better trading partners than impoverished enemies. The synthetic rubber that had crippled the Wehrmacht would now help rebuild Germany. As officers returned to a devastated homeland, they carried memories of abundance, factories that never stopped, workers celebrated for ingenuity, tires that rolled endlessly. Melenthin, Blumentritt, von Thoma, and others documented every detail. They had learned that victory was not in rigid command, but in harnessing the full potential of society, in trusting people, in creating abundance from nothing. In 1945, the war was over. But the lesson endured. It was not merely steel, bullets, or firepower that defeated Germany, it was human ingenuity, industrial mastery, and the relentless hum of tires that never stopped rolling.